Hello everyone, this is Kalyan from Blackboxtech, and today I am announcing a complete new course which is targeted for basic to advanced Angular developer. So as you have already seen in my channel, most videos are targeted for advanced kind of tips and tricks or techniques, but I thought of creating a Angular end-to-end tutorial completely free and which can be used by the growing developers or who want to learn Angular completely from scratch step by step. So in this first episode of the series, I will be discussing about how to install Angular CLI and Node and how you can set up your workspace, and I will also go through step by step about all the files which will be generated through Angular CLI. So without further delay, let's get started. So to develop using Angular, we need to install few of the things. So first and foremost, the important thing is Node.js. So Node.js is basically used by Angular to build the application, and also if you are developing using Angular Universal, then Node.js can be used as a server. So if you go to nodejs.org, you will see you have two different options for download. So if you are using Mac or if you are using Windows, so based on your operating system you can see the version available for you. So as I'm using Mac OS, so it will show me two different versions. One is LTS and one is current. So LTS means long-term support, so that is recommended for most user. And if you want to try out Node.js current features, so you can download the 12.6.0. as the latest version of Angular available is Angular 8, which support or recommend to install Node.js version 10 onwards. So you can simply click that, it will download. For Mac it will be a DMG file, and for Windows it will be an exe file. So if you install that, then if you open your terminal, or in Windows you can open your command prompt and simply type node -v. So it will tell you what version is installed in your system, or you can check with this if Node correctly installed in your system. Another process to install Node using NVM or Node Version Manager. So what is Node Version Manager? If you want to test your application or compatibility using different Node version, in that case you can use NVM to install multiple Node version, and also you can switch between different Node version. So you can also use that if you want to have multiple Node version to be installed in your system. So the next thing is we need an integrated development environment or an IDE, or you can tell it's an editor, which have good support of TypeScript. Angular mainly use TypeScript, or you can also use simple ECMAScript, but for this tutorial we'll be using Angular recommended TypeScript version. So there is a free code editor which is preferable IDE for Angular development, which is Visual Studio Code, which you can download freely from code.visualstudio.com. You can have separate version for your operating system. For Mac it is also available, and there is Windows x64 version, or if you are in Linux you can download the version as per your choice. So once you download that, then you can start your development process. So let's jump into creating a complete Angular application from scratch using Angular CLI. So Angular, what is Angular CLI? So now let's go to Angular CLI site. So if you go to angular.io/CLI, you can see installing Angular CLI. To install Angular CLI, the primary requirement to have like the node should be installed before you install Angular CLI, because it is using npm or node package manager to install the required module, and this G flag basically means global. So we will came to know, like, there are two things: you can install a particular node modules globally using this G flag. That means anywhere in your system you can actually access that directly, or you can install a particular module only in scope of your project. In that case, that your project will have a node modules in your root directory of your project, and all the project specific node module will be installed inside that. So let's install that. So right now I have already installed that in my system. So simply just copy paste and then hit enter. It will install the Angular CLI in your system, as I've already installed. So let's check what version is currently installed for me. So in that case, you just need to use ng and -- version, and it will show you what Angular CLI version you have installed. So in my case, I have installed 8.0.3, and it will also show the node version and also like the packages it depends on. So once you find it correctly installed in your system, then the next step will be going to install or create a complete new project. So in your command line, you just need to make sure your current directory where you are and in which space you want to create the new projects. So in my case, I want to create this project inside desktop. So first I will check where currently I am in. So you can write pwd, so it will tell you the correct path. So I am in currently in user and this profile directory. Next I will cd means change directory. I will go to desktop. So once I go to desktop, there I want to create my first Angular project. So to create that, I will use ng and then new and the project name I want. So in my case, I'll be using Angular 0 to hero. So once I hit enter, it will ask you different options. So would you like to add Angular routing? So I will give the details in the next lessons when I will discuss complete end-to-end about routing, how that can be used. But for now, just understand routing basically used for navigating inside your application in different pages. For an example, you have multiple pages or multiple areas of your particular page where you need to navigate through. For an example, if you have home, about us or contact us page, you can, using routing, you can navigate between different application pages. So I'll be using yes in my case, and then there are different options for style sheet format. So there is CSS, cascading style sheet, SCSS, which is a CSS preprocessor where you can use CSS variables, functions and different very good features to create your CSS, but this ultimate output will be CSS, but it will much better to handle your themes or a large CSS file. So this is SCSS and there is a SAS. Both are similar, but the syntax is different, and there is a lace as well, and also stylus. So all are CSS preprocessor. You can choose it from which in you are comfortable with. So in my case, I will be using CSS as my default style sheet format. So let's enter. So when you hit enter, you can see first it will create some files for you, and then it is installing different node modules which is required for your application. So this file is using Angular CLI's schema. So schema to install, create these templates, and then it is installing all those packages from node repository. So once this is installed, what we can do, so you can see in my desktop I have this folder created, and you already have installed this Visual Studio Code. So the next very important thing which will help you in your development cycle, so if you hit command, I think it's command shift P, so if you hit command shift P, then this window will come where you can see the shell command install code command in path. Basically this code, this tiny helper will help you in many cases. So if you select that, it will basically add this code command in your path environment variable. And then I will tell you like what will happen if you hit click that, and then I've already done that, so I'm not clicking this time. I'm closing my Visual Studio this time. I'm completely quitting my Visual Studio. So where my project has been created in desktop, I am already in the desktop. So let's change directory or cd into that project. So I will using Angular Hero 20. So now I am inside Angular Hero 02 Hero project, and then I will simply write code, and then dot means you are telling that open Visual Studio Code and make the current this dot means where you are currently. So you are inside this Angular 02 Hero folder, so tell him this open this project where I am in currently. So let's hit enter. You will see Visual Studio will automatically open your project. So you can see your project is open. So I will not go through the basics of Visual Studio Code much, because there are many things and you will gradually learn all those things while you will develop, but few of the basic things. So this is the Explorer. This is the search and replace, where you can actually quickly search for some code and replace. This is if you are having any source control like GitHub or GitLab. You can use these features, like whenever you make changes it will show like these files and these changes if you want to check in or something. And this is the debug, and also this is the extension area where you can install different theme and theme plugin, etc. So now few of the essential module I have import, like auto import, few of the themes like prettier code formatter, and then Visual Studio Code icons I've already installed. You can also install few of these like TSLint debugger from Chrome, and all these things as per your choice, which will help you to develop quickly. So now let's go through all these files generated by Angular CLI one by one. So the first and foremost file I will go through is this package.json, which is the heart of the application, wherein all the dependencies of your project. So when I'm saying dependency means all the modules which currently your application is using. So this package.json is having all those details here. So the first of all, the name will be your project name, and then the version. So the default version is generated using 000, but once you start developing and during your regular development or build process, like when you are releasing your project, this need to be incrementally updated. So this is the major, minor and patch version. So based on that you can change this, or you can also use standard version. It's a node module which will automatically update your version during release. So there are few scripts. So these are scripts which is been generated by Angular CLI by default. So the first one is ng. So and then there is a start command which will targeting ng and then serve. So ng serve, when you write ng serve or npm run start. So how you can access one of the script? So npm run and then this script name, or you can also run ng test, ng lint, ng tui. That will also work in the same way. So then it's private true. So private, if it's a private true, and if you don't have a npm private or a particular license, or you don't have a subscription, then you need to make this private false before you publishing your application or node modules to npm. So for now keep it private to true. So there is two part of it. Okay, one is dependency and another will be dev dependencies. So be very careful about these two things when you are developing Angular. So always remember dependencies, which is dependence, your Angular application is dependent on these modules, but dev dependencies, the dependency which are only required during your development. Once you build application and deploy your application, these dev dependencies no longer available, required, and this will not have, if you are not using this, there will be no problem once you deploy your application into actual server or send it to production. So whenever you install, you can always specify if that particular node module should be added into dependencies or dev dependencies. So how you can do that? So for an example, if you need a particular if you need a particular node module to be installed in your project, so simply run npm install, or you can write only I also similar to install, npm install, and then for an example I need express. So if I select -- save, so it will be installed inside your dependencies. But if you create -- save -dev, that means it will be installed as dev dependencies. And also just remember, you can also install a particular version of that module by appending a sign and then that version. So for an example, I need 10.0.0. So this will install Express 10 version. But if you not adding that, then it will install the current version for you. So this is how you can install and add that entry to the package. So if you are not adding that, this dash -- save or -- save dev, it will be installed available in your node module folder, but that will not have any entry into your package.json, and the problem will have when you check in your code for other developer to use. When they install for the first time this module, as this is not available in your package.json, that will not be used, and then developer might get some error in your code as they have not added those as a dependency. So always remember, whenever you install a new module, so use save dev or save feature or flag. So you can see these are dependencies used by Angular. So animation, common, compiler, core, forms, platform browser dynamic, router, RxJS, TS library, and Zone.js. So these all are required to create your Angular application. So once I go through the next part of this tutorial, then you will understand. For an example, what I'm trying to tell you that if you are not using animation in your application, then you can simply remove that or uninstall that particular module for your from your project, because unnecessary it will load a module which you might not have used in your application, and so it is always better to remove that from your project, whichever. So Angular already have some kind of tree shaking or other methodology where this unused code will be automatically cleaned out, but for to be safer side, always it is best practice to remove the unnecessary code or the module from your package.json. Then in the dev dependencies, there are few Angular modules has been added, like build Angular. Generally it's used the dev kit, it's part of a dev kit. It is used to build your application. This CLI, the local version of CLI, so you already installed a Angular CLI globally, so it is also installed locally. So if you don't have a admin rights, then you might find difficulty to using Angular CLI globally. In that case, it can also run through your project as a local scope if you are directly using ng from here. npm this ng will be available here. Then compiler CLI, language service, it's also use node typings, Jasmine for unit test case. Then also Codelizer to maintain the Angular best practices, so it will help you to maintain while you type or write your code. It will help you to identify the potential issues for you. And then Jasmine, this is again for Jasmine core or the Jasmine library, which will help you to write your unit test case. And then it's also use Karma and Karma for test case runner. And then Spec reporter, so you can use like your unit test case, it will it's a reporter, and also using along with Istanbul reporter, it can create a your code coverage report, like how much code you have covered using unit testing. So this is also Karma Chrome launcher, where it is launch Chrome browser to tell you like your unit test case is running, and it also so you help you to debug the unit test cases. Then the other again Karma, few of the things, HTML reporter, Karma, and protector is used for end-to-end testing. So what is difference between unit test case and end-to-end test? So mainly just for now understand, like unit test is primary to test your functional it's your test for your per unit or your code fragments, and end-to-ends basically means like it's a test wherein it will simulate the actual user experience and find out if there is an issue. For an example, it will open your application, so if there is a form, you are expecting that form to be returned something, it will actually go open your application, fill up those details, and at last it will do some something, and it will expect a particular result. So those kind of things can be handled through protector, which in the background it's used Selenium to run all those things, Selenium WebDriver. And then it's have TS node, TS lint. TS lint is actually TypeScript linting. It can tell you like whatever problem you have in your TypeScript, when you are using TypeScript, if there is a problem it will let you know. And then the actual TypeScript, So all these are your development dependencies. So now let's move into the next important part. So this is again tslint JSON. So tslint JSON, as you see in the package.json, we have used installed tslint module, and tslint modules use this tslint.json as a configuration file. So as you can see, it is extend the tslint recommended best practices, but you can also use your any other, if you have any other tslint rules, you can actually use that. So these are basically tslint rules, and there are multiple rules like component class suffix, it's needed, then directive selector, and then what is directive selectors are, it's true required, and then attribute, app, camel case, component selector required. So all these things, whenever you will miss or you are not maintaining best practices, this tslint, it will go through this configuration file. If that is required, then it will tell you like you have to fix this before Angular actually build, or it will not let you build that application if there is an error in your page. So there are many I think also you are using, it's using actually rules direct set codelizer. So all the best practices already baked in your project, and you can safely create your application or write TypeScript. If there is an issue, it will actually let you know about that issue, and it will actually warn you. So if there is an deprecation, it's actually tell you that severity is as an warning, not an actually an error. So let's move to the next one. So it's the tsconfig spec. So basically this file, it's a TypeScript configuration file. It will tell you different compiler option. It is basically extending the main tsconfig JSON. So there is a tsconfig JSON, and this is tsconfig spec.json. And in this, let's go to this tsconfig JSON first. So tsconfig JSON, mainly there are some configuration how your TypeScript actually work or compile. So there are compile and save, and this compiler option. So compiler option, here we are saying the base URL is the root path, output directory will be dist, so it will use dist and out tsc, and then source map. So I think already aware of source map. So source map generally help you to debug your application. So whenever there is when you build application, so for every JS file it will create a map file. So the map file, basically when it's built, your many JS files are compressed and it is very difficult to debug. But if you create the source map to true, then using that map file you can directly browse your main main raw file. For an example, you have app component.ts. When you build, it generated app component.js file, but in browser, when you inspect, you can directly check where is the problem in your ts file directly. So this is very good feature. Make sure for every development, for development time always keep it as true. So there are other configuration here as well. So for now we don't want any changes here. Keep it as default or Angular CLI recommended configuration. So this is also tsconfig app JSON, mainly for Angular. So it is also extending the main same tsconfig JSON. It using of all the configuration from tsconfiguration and then adding this additional configuration on top of that. So you can see this include and exclude. So out of this configuration scope, we are including that source, within source directory, all folder. So this while character means star means all, and then within that, if there is any subdirectory or child directory, inside that all the ts files should be included by this tsconfig app.json. So source, all the folder, and inside this folder if there is any ts file, all are included. And what is excluded from this configuration scope, that is inside source directory, test.ts, it will not be included. So test.ts, and also if there any spec file, so spec file basically used to write your unit test cases. So it is always recommended to have a spec file for every file you create, like component, directive or anything. You should have a spec file for that where you will write unit test cases. So any spec.ts is excluded from this scope. Now this readme md, so readme md is basically used to write your application readme. So basically you can write how a particular user or any other developer can quickly install your application, or the steps about your custom configuration or about your application, anything you can write this in this readme md. So when you send this application into GitHub or any Git, you can see this readme file is available there, and someone can have quickly an idea about your application and how that can be installed or used. So basically it is always recommended to write a particular description about application, how that can be installed. So those things you need to mention here. Then packaged lock. So package.lock is actually when you install using this package.json a modules npm modules. So you can see automatically a package lock.json version is installed, created, and these have all the version information and integrity or some checks and all these things is created. And if you checked in this file, so every developer will be cloning your application, they always have the same version is mentioned in this package.log version. Then this karma configuration. So karma, as I said earlier, it is actually basically unit test case runner. So it's used to run your unit test case and use framework as Jasmine. So this configuration basically be used for your unit test case run. And then we have this browser list. So it is already there by default. You can see this file is used by the build system to adjust CSS and JS output to support the specified browser below. So Firefox not dead, not i9 to 11, for i9 to 11 support remove not. So those are few of the configuration. And then angular.json. So this is the main configuration of your application. So this is where your project, you can say this by this JSON, all configurations like build, how it will be, what local server it will use, how it can be built, all this configuration is written here. So under this project object, you will have your project name Angular 0 to hero, and within that there are many options. So this project type is application, currently it's application, but you can also create a project called library or element or any other things. So project type can be server as well in case you are using Angular Universal. So source root is src, so this is the source root. Prefix is app, and then this architect is basically the configuration how your application will be built. So inside asset, what all folder is in scope, like source, favicon, ico, and then source within asset where you can keep your project assets. And currently the AOT false. And then there is another problem, like when output, where will be the output. So whenever you build your application, the output will be, there will be a dist folder, it will be created, and inside that there will be another folder called Angular 0 to hero based on your application name. You always change, you can change this directory structure if you want some other name. where you want this project output to be there. So you can always change. So what is the main file? It will source main.ts is your main entry point, and then polyfills. So polyfills needed to support your application in the older browsers. So so this is the polyfills path, ts configuration path. And also so styles, this is style.css, this is the main entry css file, and also there are other css file based on your component. You can use different style for your individual component also. So there are configurations. So in case of your production configuration, so it will there is file replacement. That means when you develop in local, it will be using environment.ts, but when you build your application with production flag, then it will replace with this environment.prod.ts. I will discuss like end to end when I will move to these portions, like how you can use environment or environment variable using this environment.ts file. So optimization true, output hashing all. So output hashing means whenever you build, so the file which will generate by this build process, that will have some unique hashing or unique numbers or characters, which will help you to maintain separate version every time you have a build. Also it will help you to not to cache in your server. So for if you are using basically mainly CDN, you will understand in CDN there are caching mechanism enabled. So if you upload another new version with the same name, that might not cleared by the cache, and user will still not able to see the updated version of your file and there might be difficulty. But if you are using an out hashing version, then you are sure that it will always get updated whenever you have deployed a new file version. So source map false, extract css true, name checks, these are all things when you deploy. So production version, the ut will be always true. You can actually change based on your requirement here. And this is the serve command, like when you build your application in local, so you can run this using this ng serve command, and that configuration is mentioned here. And also test, this is for your ITN, I mean internationalization of your Angular application. I have already created 2 of the IIT tutorial. You can go through that to understand those in details. And this is your test configurations, this is your lint configuration, this is your end-to-end test configuration. So all of the configurations is mentioned here. So this default project Angular 020, if you want to, if you have created another application inside this, then you can change the default project as per your preference. Then moving to the things, this git ignore, this file basically you can mention which files you want to be ignored when you check in this when you actually send this whole project to GitHub, so Git or any other Git repository. So specifically this will mention like you don't want your output directory to be into your Git. Then mainly this node module, which is huge in size, you always wanted a fresh copy whenever you clone it or start from beginning. Then you don't want this node module to be sent into your GitHub, because this is a huge folder size. And also all these files are added by default. So the next one is editor config. So there are some editor config. So this is basically like how your editor will behave. So editor can read these files and can understand what is like insert final new line true, trim trailing white space true. So whenever every developer will using editor config, that will be used by default, and it will behave same for every workspace. So let's move into this source directory. So in the source directory, the main folder is the app directory. In the app directory, where your all application main application code resides. So Before that, let's go to the other things like assets. So this directory, you can use it to store the images and other static asset for your applications. These environments having two file primary, you can create multiple based on your requirements. So for an example, in your project, if you might have separate st, qat, production or development, so this kind of, so based on that you can create multiple environments, and you need to specify that into your angular.json file. Next, we have this favicon.ico file. So basically you can see that small icon in your browser tab, so that is basically use this favicon.ico. This is the index.html file. As the legacy applications, before the legacy application, generally we have to attach the style sheet here, and then you need to attach the JavaScript here, but in Angular those will be created for you during the build time, so you don't need to attach any CSS JavaScript. But when it will build your application, this index.html, which will be created inside the this directory, those will be attached automatically for you, so you don't have to worry about that, adding those CSS and JS files here. Then we have a main.ts file or main.typescript. This main is an entry point of your application. So these are few files, these are few imports. So these imports actually, if you I've already show you, like you already installed different Angular modules, right? So there is a core module, so these modules you can actually import this enable prod mode or those functions or dependencies like platform browser dynamic. You can install it from platform browser dynamic, and then app module, environment, environment.production. If it's environment.production, then you are saying enable prod mode. Else, if it's not production, if you are using that working on local, then inside console you can see a small console information. It will tell you to you are running on development mode. If you want, please enable the production mode, so that information will, in that time it will gone. So this code basically saying this application to bootstrap your main application modules. So this is your entry point. And then polyfill, as I said, in polyfill, like this polyfill is mainly to support the outdated version of browsers. So there are separate browser polyfills, but all are commented. So based on your requirement, you can enable all of them, removing this comment. So for an example, i10 and i11 requires the following for ng class support on svg element. So if you are using that, you can simply uncomment this line, and as per this comment you need to run npm install save class.js and then uncomment this line. So all are descriptive in this file, and everything is mentioned, like what need to do when you want to be enabled this particular module. So if you are using web animation, then you need to uncomment this line and install this one. So all these things is mentioned here. And if you also need any other third-party polyfills, then you can actually mention those here in the last line. Then this your style.css main style, right now it is blank. If you want some global style to be applied in your application, then you can actually mention here. This is your main test.ts file. So to initialize the Angular testing environment, and then I will now move to this application folder. So in this application folder, the first and foremost things is this app.module file. So in app.module, this is the main module or main so when I'm saying module, what is this module? So it's a root module. There can be multiple module in your application. So for individual component you can have a module as well. So those are child module, but this app.module particular, this file is called your root module. where all the component, all the things need to be imported. So here these are some default modules which is already imported. So for an example, browser modules is required, and then this to make this metadata or this thing to declare it as a module, so it is use ng module decorator, and then there is a declaration array where you need to declare your all the components. So right now it is we have only one component here, so app component.ts, this is a single app component is mentioned, so that is also imported and that need to be added inside your declaration. And within the import we are importing this browser module and app routing module to work. So app routing module is mainly for routing your application, so routing module. And if you have a service, then you can add that into this provider array. And then at last this bootstrap, so what we want to bootstrap or initialize is the app component. So whenever your application will run, first it will bootstrap your app component, and then we are exporting this app module. So now let's move to this app component. So this is our main component and is also mentioned with add component decorator, and inside that there are few metadata. So for example, it have selectors. So selector means like HTML selector. So for an example, div, paragraph, so p. So in case these are custom selectors, so our component have a custom selector of app minus root. So every component can have template URL or template. So if you want your template to be external, that means a template file will be separated from your component, then you can use template URL. But if you want your component have HTML inside your component only, then you can use template. So here we are using template URL, and this is the path. So dot means your current current place. So this app component is here, right? So dot slash, this means you are here, and then you are finding app component.html. so this is your template file. So again, same style URLs. So style URLs have this app.component.css mentioned here. So these two things have external template as well as external style. And also this component class is exported as app component. So again, like if I again open this app module, now this app component is which is been exported, so this class has been imported here. So we are importing this app component class from app.component file. So you can see like all the files are .ts, but somehow we are not mentioning here, so that is not required here. So you don't have to mention the .ts extension, it can understand like this app.component, so we are not mentioning here. And so this app component is imported, so it is exported from here. This class has been exported and imported into our app module. So whenever we create a new component, so that the same thing will apply. So you need to export your class, and that can be imported into your app module. So another option is like if you create a component, particular component, you can create folder based on your component. You also can create shared component which can be used across your application, and inside that you can have a module. So that can also be helpful when you are going to create a lazy loading module in that case. So we'll come one by one into that in the next videos. But so this is the basic understanding your application structure and the skeletons. So the last folder here is called A2E. So as I said, this is mainly to run your functional test or end-to-end test. So this is the protector configuration and all the configuration, and you can have your spec file here and run all these things. Now let's understand how you can run your application. Uh, so as I said, so there are few commands. So the first one is ng serve. So if you run ng serve, that will quickly compile your application, and then it will give you an URL or address in which you can see your application is running. So one of the best feature of Angular is or Angular CLI is like it is using Angular live development server. So live development server basically like you can keep open this terminal window and keep running your application, and then do a few modification in your application which will instantly visible in the browser. The browser will automatically get refreshed, and then you can see your application changes immediately. So for an example, I'm just creating my window smaller. Now I'm opening my browser here. So let's see, I'm just pasting this local host 4200. You can see your application is running, right? So now let's go to source directory or any file here. Say for an example, I want to change this welcome to Angular 02 Hero. So this is the title we are talking about. So I will write first episode. When I hit Command S or save, so instantly you can see this browser got refreshed, and immediately you can see all these changes. And if you inspect element as our application now running in dev mode, you can see Angular is running in development mode. Call enable prod mode to enable the production mode. So this is basically we are running in development mode. Now few of the other things are required. So ng serve, there is a command, as I said. Let's open our package.json so you can understand what I'm saying. So in the package.json, as I see, like there are few of the script available. So ng serve we already tried. Ng build, it will do your production build. Then ng test, so let's do run one by one. So now ng build, so we don't need any flag. It should automatically build for your production environment. So now it will start building your application. You can see the percentage of completion. So mainly it will create a dist directory or distribution directory, and we are expecting inside that directory there will be another directory which will be our project name called Angular 02 Hero, and then that will hold our complete application build fragment. So there is a dist directory created already. Now if I expand that, you can see our directory based on our project name, which is defined into angular.json file, and inside that all this file is there. And as I said, this application have source map to true, then every file accommodating a JS file created a map file, which will be helpful so to debug your application. So let me show you how you can actually see that working. So for Chrome, so this is the web server for Chrome. You can actually simply add this application. This is very handy. And now when you open that, so choose folder, correctly choose the folder. So it's in desktop, this Angular to Angular 02 Hero, then this directory, and this folder should be our main folder. Once you select that, and web server started, now if you hit this URL, you can see our application is running. So this is very easy to use, just a handy web server. And now what I was talking about, these map files. So now if I inspect something in our page, you can see. So now go to source, and say for an example, these are the minified files, right? Main.js, polyfills, runtime, styles, all are minified, right? But this is very difficult to debug. But now if you hit command and uh, console source, let's close all these files. So command P is to open file. Now if I open file, I can directly type our app component.ts here. Now you can see this is the same file which you have in your source directory, so app.component.ts, and you want to check if your title is actually having to debug here. So if you simply just put a debugger here, and if you hit reload, you can see your debugger will be stopping here. Okay, so this way you can actually simply debug your application. Also, if you are using Chrome debugger for Visual Studio Code, you can actually debug that code inside your application. So in the next session I will tell you how to do that. So for now, I think this is the first and we'll learn more one by one, and we'll go into deeper into creating Angular application, creating different components, and creating directives and other things. Jump directly to the advanced one. So I think that's all for today. I hope you like it, and please watch my this series. I will add every videos in coming week, and it will be whole series. There will be step-by-step video for all of the Angular features, and how to create components, directory, pipes, and everything end to end. So keep watching, guys. Thanks for your time. Thank you. Have a great day. Bye.